So in this video, we're going to go through how the steps that we have to take to create a chart like this that will sort of correlate the COVID cases in each of the countries and will show some of the indicators of a country's economic health. Here I have GDP and the latest unemployment rates, and here we have all the COVID cases and their economic metrics by country. And this will give us a perspective into like how a country's handling of the COVID situation could better or worsen its economic situation, and whether these things are correlated, and how some neighboring countries are doing compared to each other's. For example, if you look at the Western Europe here, if we can zoom, we can see that like Spain, we want to take a look at Spain, France, Italy, and Germany. We can see that Spain by far has had it worse than its neighbors, and the COVID's economic impact has dropped its GDP in the latest quarter by 56% approximately, and it has the highest uh, unemployment rate among its neighbors. And it also happens to have the sort of the highest COVID cases and the highest COVID cases per capita among these countries. But obviously, we're not saying that this is a causal effect, but there might be some correlation. But on the other hand, if we look at these three neighboring countries like Canada, U.S., and Mexico, we can see that even though U.S. has had the sort of the worst COVID outbreak by far, has the most cases per capita compared to neighbors, they're not even close. But still, like its economics is like holding fairly equally compared to Canada, even a little bit better, and certainly better than Mexico regarding the GDP drop that it has had, even though Mexico has not released unemployment rates for June, which is where these dates are from. Anyway, so we want to use Tableau to create something like this, a dashboard like this, which can be useful to gain insights about like everything. But for this particular case, I'm going to look at COVID cases in each country and their general macroeconomic statistics, and we're going to walk through creating this chart. Obviously, the first thing we need for creating any chart is the data. And I created a video and I acquired this data from Bloomberg, but you can get it from anywhere. And that will be fine. And we're basically looking at total COVID cases per capita, the GDP change in the last quarter, and the June's unemployment rate. And we have all these countries here. So we want to plot that dashboard using this data set that we have. The first thing we ought to do is, and this is open up Tableau, and this is a Tableau public. It's free to download. You can create an account and you can publish your work too. And I found it very useful, honestly. So the first thing we got to do after opening up Tableau is to import our data set, and ours is in the form of Excel. So we're going to import this here. And Tableau recognizes this basically, and it shows all the country and our columns and everything. And here we have different sheets. We can create different sheets. And what this is basically, in each sheet we get to create one chart, and then we can combine these charts together to create a panel like we saw in the beginning of the video. All right. So the first chart that we're going to go about creating is the COVID cases and the COVID percentage of the population for each country. And to do this, we need a map world. And the easiest way to do that is to first tell Tableau by just clicking here on this arrow that the region column that we have is basically geometric parameter here. And after sort of telling Tableau that this is country / region, and you can sort of drag that and drop it in here, and Tableau will recognize in itself and will create this map for you. Now, if we look at this chart, we can see that the size of the circles that we have here basically tell us the total amount of cases that each country has had. And we need to sort of tell Tableau that these circles need to represent the total amount of confirmed cases in each country. And to do that, we have this column here, total COVID cases, as we had in our data set. And we would just drag this and put this into size. And this will give us a perspective. If we want, I'd like to make the circles a little bit bigger too, for better illustration. And we have our numbers here. And if you look at it, United States 6 million, Mexico 600,000, India 3.6. And we have all our confirmed COVID cases for each country here, right? Now, if we look at this chart again, we can see that some of the sort of total cases are cited below those circles. And if we want to do that, we can easily just put the total COVID cases in the label part as well. And this will show us basically the total amount of cases that have been cited in each country. And it's a good thing because like Tableau is sort of smart about this. It doesn't put those numbers everywhere, so it will mess up your chart. It will only show them if there's space for it. Like if I zoom out, you can see that like only 3 of them are showing. So it won't mess up your charts. It's not a bad thing to have. Some people enjoy it. Now, if we go again back to this chart, we can see that the places that are color coded based on their percentage of the population that have gotten COVID to sort of adjust for the population growth, because like places like US, India, Russia, they have higher populations. I mean, and that's not an accurate estimation if you only provide the total COVID cases, because generally places with higher populations would be expected to have more cases. So we're gonna include a COVID cases per capita, and we're gonna show that via color coding in this chart. And to do that, I'm just going to COVID cases per capita, drag that and drop it into color. And we can see it is color coded, but that's still not telling us much. So I'm gonna first change the colors to make it more visible. And obviously more COVID, it's worse. So we're gonna reverse the whole red-green situation here, and we're gonna okay. But we can see that this is not telling us much either. Why is everything green? The problem here is we have a few countries here in the Persian Gulf region here, and they have a very low population. And because of that, they have a high COVID cases per capita, and they sort of skew our data. And this sort of divergence point where the colors are changed. So to fix that, we could come up here and click on advance, right? And we can see that the center for this divergence is currently at 2.5%. And that is very high because the current global, is the Tableau is looking at this linearly, always have that in mind. In cases like this, it's always better to basically look up the global average and put it here, and it will give you a sort of a better look. So I believe the current world average per capita is something about 0.3%, 0.3.5%, something like that. So I'm gonna put that here, and that will increase our cases better. See, now we have a better view of this thing. If we want to get a couple of green ones too, we could sort of make this into a 4, and then again, and now we have a sort of a decent thing. We can see that like per capita cases are a lot higher here, but even though US has a sort of a large population, it still has a high per capita case, but that's not the case for India anymore. So we have our basically first chart ready here, and we have everything we need. But if you go back and look at this, we can see that we would also see the GDP and the latest unemployment rate on each of the circles as well if we hover the mouse around it. So to do that, we're gonna drag these and basically like GDP. We could put it in the details section. So if we put it on here, it will show it, right? And we could do the same for the unemployment rate. If we wanted to show us the unemployment rate for that country in this chart. Now we can notice here that these numbers are not like shown in a percentage view, and I personally like to see them in the percentage view. It's prettier, especially if you're like uh, showing the chart to a general audience. So to fix that issue, we gotta tell Tableau that these numbers are percentages, and to fix that, we have a few percentages here. So first one is the COVID cases per capita. To fix that, we can go to this section here, default properties, and the number format. And we can check percentile here with 2 decimal places. And we can see that our COVID cases per capita is fixed. Now we can do the same thing for the GDP percentage changes since the last quarter. And to do that, we're gonna go to this numbering format again and select percentage. There we go. That one's fixed too. And let's fix the unemployment rate too. So that could be shown in a percentage format as well, since it is a percentage. There we go. And there we go. So our first step is done. We have our map here, and you can see that some of the countries don't have like some of the stats shown here, and that's because I tried acquiring the latest data because that's what makes a chart valuable. You don't want to make it like with, I don't know, 90s data unless you're trying to prove something with that data. But since we're just trying to illustrate the latest happenings of the world, and we're not trying to show any sort of specific correlation or causality in this task, we needed the latest data, and those are not available for like various countries in our list, but we still have the COVID cases for them. But whenever that's not available, we can see that Tableau sort of just leaves it empty, and that's fine for us, honestly. And that will be sort of our basically our uh, COVID chart, the map chart that we're going to use in our panel. So we could also rename the sheet that we have by clicking here, and I'm just gonna map. That would be our map sheet, right? And center it, and there we go. All right, map. There we go. All right. Enter, and we can see that we can create more worksheets here. And for our second worksheet, what we want to do is, if we look at this chart, we want to first have the statistics, the economic statistics, the two economic statistics that we're sort of plotting here, the GDP change in the last quarter and the June's unemployment rate. We want to plot them and the countries that we have. So to do that, we would first need to put the region thing in our roles section here, because if I put it here, it will just plot the world. To do that, like, to tell it to not show a word map. There are other ways, but the easiest way is just put it here, the row map. And we would then put in the GDP and the unemployment rate in the column segment. We see that we get the sort of data, the first look that we have here. But we have a problem here, and that is that like we have a lot of gaps in the economic indicator data, and there's like just a lot of wasted space. We don't need Albania or Algeria. We don't need to see the stats that don't exist. So what we can do for that is we would go to this um, we would go to the GDP changes, or we could just come here as well. Um, regions, show filter. There's a, okay. I mean, we could filter the regions out like that too, but actually the easiest way will be to just put in GDP changes here and then next, and just here if you put it as a filter and it says include null values, if you don't check this box, and it will just remove the rest of them. So we only have the countries that have had a sort of a GDP announcing in the past month, I believe. I think, yeah, it was August 1st. I don't know. But yeah, we only get the countries that we actually have data points for, so that's good for us. Now, as in the last part, we sort of want to color code this, and we're going to do that the same way we did last time. We do the GDP percentage change in the, let's not put it in all. We can see that our chart has basically three segments: all, some GDP, and the June unemployment. So we want to color code GDP based on GDP, and basically the June based on the June. So we would drop the GDP percentage changes in the color segment here. And then again, we want to use the same coloring to make it more visible and insightful, if you will. And we would hit OK, and it will show us this chart. And actually happy with this. I mean, we can reduce it a little bit because like China is oddly having a 54% GDP increase in the last quarter, when everywhere else in the world is going through a recession. We can sort of remove our mid a little bit higher to account for that. Instead of 0, let's, I don't know, let's assume like -4. If a country has gone through only 4% recession, we would assume it has done a good job. Nope. I think I actually put 4. Okay. There we go. Sorry for that. There we go. Alright. So we can see like places like South Korea and stuff, even though they had a sort of massive GDP drop, they're still faring better than like places like Spain. And this would be our data. And we're gonna do the same thing basically for the unemployment as well. And we're gonna use, and here you can sort of change this into a bar, automatic, square, whatever you want, but the bar chart works fine for us. But in case Tableau didn't recognize your work as a bar chart, you can come here and just select it as a bar chart and it will give you a bar chart. Let's put this in the color segment, and let's edit these colors to our green and red again. And we're gonna reverse that because, you know, high unemployment is bad. And then again, this is skewed because places like Colombia have a terrible unemployment rate. So we're gonna sort of fix this a little bit manually, and we're gonna assume a decent unemployment rate would be like 7%. So even 6%. Some would say 0, but you know, like 6.5%. And that will sort of provide a better look. All right. Now we have our, basically the second chart that we need. Let's name it economic, I don't know, economic indicators by country, right? And and this is done. Alright, now we want to use the two charts that we created to create a panel like we saw in the beginning of the video. For that, there's this button here called dashboard, and we could just click on it, and we would basically merge these two charts that we already have here. It has an option here. They could sort of choose the screen that you're preparing for, and this is very important, that like it matters what you're representing to, like whether you want people to like look at this on their phones or on their screens. But for the sake of our exercise, I'm just going to put this on automatic and assume like we're going to be viewing it on a laptop with a semi big screen. And the first step that we need to take is just drag the first map chart that we have here, and then we will drag the eco chart that we have here, right? And this has all, I think. But one thing that we need to fix, like alongside stuff like fonts and centralizing our text and stuff like that, is that these charts are not currently connected. It doesn't recognize this. Like whenever I select US, does not highlight it here. I cannot sort of compare two countries here like we did in the beginning. And fortunately, Tableau has a sort of decent procedure for that, and it's super easy. The only thing we gotta do is go to this dashboard here and click on format. Nope. Okay, sorry about that. Click on actions, and it would give us a bunch of actions, different actions that we can use here. What we're looking for is like the highlighting. We want to select something in this map, on the left hand map, and we want it to show on the right hand map. So we would basically say read source sheet from map and sort of do it on the right hand, the eco chart that we have here. And we want it done for all of you. So we'll just okay that, and see, it's done. We can now select different countries here. We can unselect it, and that will sort of complete our chart. And I mean, you can sort of, if you want, change the font, make it prettier. All the stuff is like, it has a lot of features that you can use to make a prettier map, but I'm not really gonna go through all of them because this has already been a long video. For example, in my case, I like put these legends down here rather than, you can easily move these. You just drag them and, I don't know, put them here, and that will be it. And the last thing you need to do is to basically publish this, and that will be just easy enough. You could just click on this button here, and video recording chart, right? And you can just save it. If you're not logged in or you don't have an account, it will ask you to log in and create an account. But since I'm already logged in, I don't need to. But if you have an account, it won't be a problem. And it will take a minute, but there we go. It will publish it on your accounts page, and you can like choose it to be basically both public and private. And if you're working with good data, obviously you can, I don't know, put it on your LinkedIn or whatever you want to work with. And that brings to end our video. We could see some sort of an interesting stats here too. Like these are interesting stats showing, like looking at how China's economy doing, and how some of the places that have handled COVID better, voting a little bit better, and how in some cases that doesn't really is not the case. Anyway, that brings about the end of this video. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.